Hey boys, how you doing?
Zack Martin, good to see you, man.
Good to see you also. You guys, I wish I would have got the memo. I wore a blue polo. I should have wore a black shirt.
You're looking great.
Thanks for coming on, man. Saving the
Of course.
day.
Yeah, we're getting better. I'm updating your banner as well to ZACK because I'm a real one, and I know
Oh,
know there.
I don't know, dude. I'm a,
Um,
I'm a, I'm a CH.
it's tough. That's tough. Is there
Talk to
are
my
there
parents.
more Zacks with Ks or
I
H's
know,
in the
I know,
world?
I knew a ZAKK growing up. So his parents really went wild there.
Poor guy.
dude, I should be a ZACH. And so I kind of could like shame my parents for letting me do this like atrocity. I'm a Zachary, so it should be a CH, but this is how it
Oh,
lies. And so we'll just keep going with it.
that's a unique one. That's rare, isn't
Well,
it? Normally, if you're Zachary, it's you chop it.
Should be. I
Should
think
be.
it
but hey,
definitely should be.
we're here. You saved the day for us. We're supposed to have Greg Bell on from Hedera, and the kid life. You get
Exposure
sick,
to
and the whole
germs.
family's sick. There's kind of no way of dodging it. So thanks for. I think you had what 3 hours notice. So thanks for hopping on.
Of course, guys. No, I think this is a really cool topic. And honestly, I love the intro. You guys, I always had a goal to be on CNBC, but that was a far better intro. So this is like very exciting to roll into
There
this.
we go.
Plus, like the background screen, this is just a better experience. So,
There we go.
hey, there we go.
You, yeah, man, pumped to catch up with you. We've known you for a long time, but we've never covered CipherOwl formally on the show or what you're doing. I love your perspective about the problem CipherOwl is solving based on your background and like what you experienced along your career. Maybe bring us into your story more on where you've been throughout your career and then how that led you to the problem CipherOwl is going after.
Yeah, no, definitely. Fast story on this one. Started out of school at Ernst Young, did a little bit of taste of forensic accounting and got to feel like that was like, but a lot of audit and it was just really tough work. So I'm going to date myself now. When I was working at the hours of Sarbanes-Oxley, it was very aggressive and a lot of work. And so it made more sense to try and move into finance banking instead. And so I left the world of accounting and I went to Bear Stearns right for the end of that one, very much dating myself for the collapse at that point. But that's originally what got me interested in crypto. When you see financial markets fall apart with the front row seat, it got really interesting. Of there's got to be a better way to do things. From there, I went to a regional bank called William Blair out of Chicago. Worked all over the bank and with really closely with a lot of those teams. And I thought crypto was going to be one of those things that would fade away. And as it kept gaining momentum and not fading away multiple years after years, you knew it was going to stay around. And then it coincided with me meeting my wife, having my kids, not being sick today, but being here. And from there, I just made a career change to go to Salesforce, but I was very, very interested in like the space. At Salesforce, I covered crypto companies, a lot of fintechs, and just kept seeing this space evolve and really got an idea of how tech stacks interact with businesses and how they actually kind of lay the foundation for success. From there, had tons of great mentors, ended up getting in touch with Chainalysis. I was one of their first hires on the West Coast. Raul was actually the first one. And so kudos to him. He was fantastic and kind of laid the groundwork for me. But while there, covered all your strategic accounts on the West Coast on the private sector side. So your payment processors and a lot of the exchanges. And with the exchanges, we were selling into Coinbase. They kept building everything better, faster, cheaper internally, which just makes it hard for a salesperson. So when that team decided to spin out and gave me a ring, I grabbed my right-hand woman, Alexis, and then we went off and running. And I think we're just trying to do things a little bit different and remove those friction points to make it so much easier for adoption from the institutions, which I know you guys had on earlier today, and then do the scale of where we're going to see these transaction volumes go. So if you think about the Arbitrums of the world and other players in the stablecoin space, this is exactly what's going to have to happen.
I didn't know this. You were actually at Chainalysis selling or looking to sell some of these things into Coinbase. And I know the reading between the lines of what you said, that team who was at Coinbase spun out to go start and solve this specifically. Speak a little bit to like the founders of CipherOwl, and maybe like the story of that specifically. I didn't know that part.
Yeah, so I mean, we got connected, and it was a lot of coffee shop meetings, and it was one of these things where I kind of left the space, but I still loved it, and I was really worried about if I saw another player that kind of looked the exact same, I wasn't really interested in coming back into it. The founders of of CipherOwl are the most intelligent engineers I've ever seen or ever worked with in my entire life. They came from a background of cruise cars. So if you think about how you try and figure out how to get petabytes of data up into the cloud, back into a car in an efficient manner, it was like a unfixable challenge. But these guys were the ones that did it. When they decided to move out of autonomous vehicles and into on-chain activity, they were able to do some pretty amazing work. With that, they could do with a small team, build out giant internal compliance stacks. They could do all kinds of automations. They were doing things from security to reporting and kind of looked at this as the new financial rails. So Leo, Ming, and myself, they convinced me very easily to move on with how fast they could do things and how well they could do things. And then it's been really fun to kind of keep that moving. From your kind of standpoint, that as well, I think the thing I would love about CipherOwl the most, and what you're talking about, Zach, earlier, is we're just going to be so agentic focused because it's the only way we can solve this problem. And so having that built in and embedded in the way we built the company from day one on the infra side, I just think it gives us a huge advantage and it's really exciting. Not saying anything, all the players in the space are fantastic. It's us against the bad guys. And so love everybody that we work with in this community. We're just trying to do things a little bit different.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit more because especially Drew's been spending a ton of time in his stable-minded conversations. It obviously comes up a ton on Stable Dash Live, but specifically on Stable, we talked with Latondre, which is very AI counting. Predicate's been on the show. I think Rain and Charles from Rain spent a lot of time talking about agentic workflows when it comes to compliance specifically. So, what does it mean to be AI agentic forward when you're building out your compliance operations?
That's a very, very great point. And love the team over at Predicate. Nikhil, I think, is one of the greatest minds in the space, and so everyone should reach out and talk to him or at least follow him. It's good you guys had him on the show. I think the thing that's going to be the biggest problems, not problems, but I think the most important parts about being agentic first is building the infra layer from the very beginning with that consideration. I think there's a problem where if you were trying to build for yesterday's blockchains and yesterday's transaction volumes, you're going to hit limits. The new systems they feel almost limitless, and they need to be built with not sticking a bot or AI on top of an archaic infrastructure. I mean, you can see the problems that people are having. Let's go in the SaaS world, Salesforce, Adobe, et cetera. People are saying, no, we just need to go baseline agentic from the beginning instead of trying to bolt on agents on top of kind of inefficient infrastructure. And so I think from what you guys are talking about with kind of the agentic commerce going forward, stablecoins, not all transactions are going to be created equal. So when I look at what's going to happen with stablecoins, we're going to see massive amounts of transactions, but those margins are going to collapse. So we have to have a different business model, which means we have to have automation. We have to have the speed of being able to look at that many transactions and run those reports in a very automated fashion. And then the people that are actually doing the compliance and the investigations, they need the tools to be able to do it so much faster, so much more accurate, and then use what makes them special. And that's their own like human abilities to make judgment calls.
Super interesting. We're looking here at the website for modules of SR3: screen, reason, research, and report. Let's break these down and just kind of what this looks like. I remember talking with Leo and Ming very, very early on like trying to identify like what are these pain points that you're actually solving here. And the thing that I recall from those conversations, this was like over a year ago, was the part of the process for someone who might be using something like this tool. The identification and the blockchain analytics piece specifically is important, but a lot of the time, human resourcing, dealing with something like a suspicious activity report come with all of these like human in the loop time sucks. Talk a little bit about how you're building for someone like that, being a Coinbase and like seeing at least how they did it. There are so many like hoops and people and processes and time involved with what happens after you flag a transaction or after you find something that looks suspicious. So how does this like walk us through this SR3 stack? This is the first time I'm seeing this.
Yeah, no. So I think that you're hitting on the head. And I think that with compliance and what we're trying to do, we really do want to be focused on the human in the loop. But we want to make sure that when the human is in the loop, they're doing the best things that humans do and not wasting time preparing documents or anything else like that. So if we start with the screening, I think that screening is a really interesting one. Right now, screening is a tax on the industry. I think that if you're paying an absorbent amounts of per wallet screen, it's just not going to help scale the industry and it's going to stand in the way of adoption. So what we're trying to do is two major things here. One is we're going to have the industry best speed on your response times on each of these screens. And number two is we're going to do it the most efficient, cost efficient way possible to make sure that your business is not being taxed on transaction volumes. We're going to try and find outcome-based solutions. They're going to help you run the best compliance program, not just try and adjust your compliance because of costing. From this one also, I think the most important part on the screening is going to be the speed and the scale of the speed. So you'll be able to start doing inline checks with those wallets rather than trying to batch them on the back end, which should help unlock a lot of systems. If we move down to reasoning, I think that there's a lot of pieces of this that are really important. One of the things that we do from day one, and I think that we're starting to see some of the other players do it, is we're giving an audit trail for each one of our labels, along with a confidence score of how we feel about each one of those addresses. So gone will be the days where it's a black box system. You're going to say, you have to trust, hey, we're name your vendor. You got to just trust us. We know what we're doing. And if you need attribution audits or understanding how we did those labels, hit us up and we'll get back to you in 10 days. It's just not going to be how it works forward. And so that's something from day one we focused on. And then making sure that all of our reasonings for those labels are very transparent, as easy as a Google search. We jumped down
I
to
know you weren't
research.
prepared to, you've probably done this a million times, but we're having you essentially demo this or pitch this, which is
No,
great.
you do bits and pieces of it. And so this is actually good practice for me. So when Ming and Leo see this later, you guys, I'm doing my best. I apologize, but we're doing good on this one. The reasoning piece is really, really important here. So once you see there's risk, once you see the label for it, like what is actually kind of like how can we give you the reasoning of like what we actually see here? So
Did you see, just really quick on this point, I saw yesterday, Emily, I'll try to find this tweet, Emily from Coinbase, president of Coinbase, like responding to this. It was on X. This guy who was like traveling all around the world was in this some sort of compliance conversation with Coinbase support or Coinbase compliance, investigating like, hey, why are you going to all these different countries? Is there a compromise here? And he was like essentially flaming Coinbase on the timeline around like how intrusive they are. And it sounds like this is kind of the step we're in here. It's like, hey, something looks sus here. You're traveling to all these different countries away from your home one. Is this kind of the moment we're in here?
Yeah, so I think that one's like again, I think so with the audit trails, I think the most important thing about this is we don't want to look at things as like one label for one wallet, right? There's a storyline there, and we need to understand that with a timestamp, what's actually going on, and that all risk is not going to be considered equal for all different products and all different business lines. And so when you kind of have that ability to parse out what you think is risky and what you don't think is risky, I think it's going to open up a lot more transparency. It's too difficult when you have to actually just trust a vendor. And then, I mean, I've seen it before. Like it's a judgment call at the end of the day. And so you need as much information to say, do you agree with you? Do you not agree with that judgment call? So we're really trying to attack that space a lot and give the power in the actual vendor and business unit owner of what's actually risk, what's not risk. And transparency is going to be the most important part of that one.
All right, round us out here with research.
Research. This one's fun. And I think that, Drew, you talked to us early. We were putting AI graphing and so auto graphing, auto narratives, auto risk descriptions in our tool from the beginning. So over the last 2 years. And now it's been really exciting because we've seen the two biggest players in the space kind of add those tools into their product suites. So really excited what Chain's doing, really excited about what TMR's doing. For us, it's just we've only seen it at table stakes. What I'm getting really excited about this one on the research piece is we're building investigation tools and investigation services that will help grow and operate at the speed that we're going to see necessary for stablecoin adoption. So if we're thinking about a Visa, Charles Schwab, or these other larger institutions and the speed of which they're going to have to file SAR reports and have us all documented, building a team of 5,000 investigators is not going to be reasonable, and it's not going to scale correctly. So with this and having our reporting capabilities, it's going to be super nice. The other one I thought was, and I'm going to dig back into my accounting days with Ernst Young. You get the audit, you get to do kind of control modeling. So your consistency in those reports are going to be so much better. Every person acts a little bit different, especially if they're BPO. So you want to make sure the consistency is key. It's just going to let the people do what's really good people do is run analysis over it instead of preparing those reports.
It seems like just looking at the website here, I'd love to dive into the core industries or who does CipherOwl really work well with today. It looks like the approach, at least publicly, is like very broad. Like we are built for every institution, a ton of different types of industries, which makes a ton of sense. I'd love to hear just from your standpoint on the BD sales, go to market, revenue side of things, given some of the tailwinds that we're now seeing with the Clarity Act, and I think a lot of bigger institutions and larger companies who need to be playing by these rules, if they implement something on chain with stablecoins, it is a must that they implement things like these tools. What industries are you seeing right now maybe being unblocked or ready to get in the game that might be using this tool? Like who is CipherOwl best for today versus maybe tomorrow post clarity?
No, it's a great question. I think that I think each vendor, instead of like a different, like what you're trying to do, should be considered like who you actually are as a purchaser in a company. Like it's a weird thing. That's where I see compliance vendors apps right now. So you look at a Chainalysis and you're buying, and you're definitely buying a logo of reputation. They've been around the space forever, and they are going to have certain processes and things that might not fit with you exactly, and they're not going to be as flexible, but you're buying the name recognition, and that's going to be super helpful. With TRM, you're looking at the second biggest player in the space, and they're doing absolutely great work. And what you're doing there is they've hired so many kind of law enforcement experts, and so you get this great integration with what law enforcement's thinking. And I think that it's, if you were focusing on law enforcement, making sure that's your strong suit and seeing what Aries saying, like that's a fantastic vendor. Elliptic's always been a data provider. They've been overseas, and so sometimes they're a little bit harder for US entities. But unbelievable team over there. And I think that if you're going to do data focus and build on it, that's probably the one you're going to lean towards over the other two. With us, we're looking at trying to be a new person in the space that's doing things differently and faster and more efficiently. So what we want is that innovator that wants to sit down with us, come up with what their business problems are, and we're going to build to those things. And then each one of our endpoints and touch points are an API. And so we're here to actually build that infrastructure for what you're trying to do, not build these kind of like closed loops, black box systems. They're going to be hard to integrate. Now, the other thing I'd add to that as well, when we're seeing all the regulations coming down the pipeline is going to tell you, you don't need a single point of failure. So for us, we're going to see two vendors. And so what you want to do is find variable vendors. We're trying to do things so differently that pick one of those main incumbents, pick one of them that is going to give you the brand recognition and you're going to feel super comfortable with because you're not going to get in trouble for it. Now, when you need to think about and experiment with how we want to be doing this in the future, bring us in. We'll be your backup. We can make sure and do all those things. But as we start approaching new problems that haven't been discovered yet, I think we're going to be the team that can actually move fastest and make sure those problems are solved.
This might be an oversimplified way to think about it, but I imagine the names that you had listed and maybe historically how those products have worked, where you have a dashboard or a person or a team at these companies using that software or using that tool, and then they can kind of manage their compliance and fraud business within that tool, and it operates more of like a standalone system versus maybe today what modern companies, AI driven companies, leaner teams might be needing to do, which is like embedding these types of tools within first party apps or first party platforms or things that they're building for their end clients or for their end teams. Are you seeing CipherOwl, if I'm kind of reading this or listening correctly, it's like more of a modular, customizable infrastructure that you can use to go build with?
I definitely think that's a great way to look at it. And I think that for even teams that are intimidated by the idea of building right away or thinking that that might be too complicated, we try to keep a front end that's so easy and simple to use that it's the fastest way to turn something on, get the results you're looking for, and then move from day one. So I think that let's
So
just
you
go with an
have both
investigate.
you have the dashboard if they want it, but you can also enable these more like bespoke use cases in more of an embedded way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you look at it, the dream scenario on here is look, on chain compliance is going to be part of many different compliance programs. What we'd love to do is embed into a cockpit that allows everybody to have understanding of what's going on in a complete picture to run their compliance programs or their investigation programs. And then what we want to do is power it with, whatever our data is, and then the compute layer on top of that data to make sure that you are enabled to do your best work in compliance investigations.
Who would you call out on the go to market side specific to for us and our audience, the people that we really I think right now attract to the show are issuers, builders and operators within stablecoin infrastructure, people who are very deep in this world of stablecoins. Um, at least today, that's where I think we have a lot of density. It seems like you guys are going after specifically some of the like stablecoin issuers and RWA issuers. Any specific kind of call to actions for them in this world?
It's a great question, Drew. So I think that the most important thing when you're going to be an issuer of any kind, or it's interacting with these spaces, is going to be ecosystem monitoring.
Hmm.
You're going to want to full broad view of what's going on of your token across multiple different assets. And you're going to know kind of just changes along the way in real time about what's going on. Now, I think the other part is going to be very important. And as we kind of move from the crawl, walk, run, I think monitoring is going to be number one. Number two will be actioning. So then, actually, or alerting. So then it will be, hey, we're starting to see these different variations because of advanced intelligence. We think it could be certain entities you need to dig into, you need to double click on, or just certain processes that we need to be thinking of. Yeah. So monitoring, alerting, and then action on top of that. And then having bots that can say, hey, here's reports of what you need. These are things you need to be shifting. These are contacts that need to be going on. And then doing that in real time where it's hitting you and on your phone mobily if you're, at a kid's soccer game, or if you are just at work and you want to tell me over Slack or Teams, it needs to be wherever you're at, and it can't be in a walled off system that you're swivel chairing in and out of.
Yeah, yeah, super interesting. I love the differences here and how you're kind of positioning this specifically to issuers and folks like that. Dude, this is fun. Would love to have you back. It
Yeah.
also could be really fun to I don't know if this is something that you would be open to, but like if there are existing ways to something that we're thinking through. We kind of did it on this in this conversation earlier with that system, but like if there are ways that Zach and myself could get access to these types of tools or use them or get the ability to do better storytelling or investigation or coverage of certain assets or teams or companies, like if there's a way that we can use
Yeah.
CipherOwl ourselves during the show, and then let's say we're meeting with someone from Agora or Tether or Circle or whomever it might be on the issuer side, we could almost like use this type of product. But I don't know how publicly available this stuff is, but let's think through what that could mean. That could be fun.
No, no, I love that idea, and I love that you're like going a show and you're like, hey, so can we get some free tools? The answer is always yes, guys. We're here to take care of you guys.
The conferences always let the media
And
people
you
in
got
for
some
free.
cool socks, dude? You got a hat for us?
No, I'm actually, this is something I need to get on because we do not have cool slots. I have hats. That's it right now. So you guys send over address and we'll get you
There's
taken
nothing
care
there's
of.
nothing
Like,
like that last day of the conference where you're just going around like, "Hey, what stuff do you need to get rid of?" I think I have like 10 superscript pair of socks because they were just like, "Take them," and I was like, "Okay."
yeah, Zach, I'm having an even more embarrassing one. There was one year where I had so many leftover socks that I was like gonna just outfit my daughter's soccer team in them. I'm like, let's
You should.
we're gonna do this branded
Sponsored
company,
by
and then
Sponsored by
Consensus
yeah,
2020.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I was like, I have so many socks from. I mean, think about it when you guys used to go from these things. It's the one thing that everybody's like, just take them because we can't have them. So even as a salesperson, you always had too many socks.
I can never have
So
enough socks.
Speaking of merch, Zach, shout out. You were one of our first ever hoodie owners.
I know, actually, I almost wore it, and I was just thinking about it, like I should have definitely wore it. Actually, you want to go grab? I think I can grab it right now. It's like right over there.
Next time, we got to bring
Next
Brian
time
in.
we need to about hats. Hats are next. I'm like, Drew, we need a stable dash run of hats,
Yep.
especially for I would love to just wear one during the show. I'm a hat
We got to
guy.
get our sponsors. We got to get some sponsor merch.
Yep.
Yeah,
Up
man.
Well,
next.
let me know. I'm really happy with our merch help for. We definitely get you guys set up with that stuff. So
Is it
just
Canary?
let
Are
me
you
know.
guys working with Canary?
No, we're working with I mean, we're working with a direct vendor, not a name brand what you know of, but they're definitely a good value prop.
Jordan Davis's wife runs Canary. I know you're close with Jordan's. Shout out to
Yeah.
Canary.
So hey guys, real quick, congratulations to Jordan and having a second child.
Congratulations to Jordan. More babies. We need more babies in the world.